used to hit the town when the sun went down to enjoy swinging music and big-name bands. Andy Anderson is an 85-year-old tenor saxophonist who grew up in Cleveland and performed at many of the city's nightclubs in the 1930s. He remembers a time when Cleveland came alive after dark as we dressed up in our best clothes and headed downtown to where the action was.
You had dance halls, theaters, and radio shows, and nightclubs. Well, then you had big bands then traveling. So maybe Duke Ellington may be here tonight, you know, then maybe next week maybe have Fletcher Henderson.
Cleveland was a very large show town. We had clubs that we worked like Moe's Main Street. There was Corey's. There was the Bogart Club. There was the Cabin Club. And, of course, most people will remember Chin's Victory Room.
Ann Carroll worked as a dancer, singer, and MC at many of Cleveland's hot spots in the 1940s.
We had so many well-known people working these clubs, and I was lucky enough at a young age to work these places with a lot of well-known people. And then there was the World War II, where we had the Stage Door Canteen, and we had people like Artie Shaw, Dolores and Bob Hope come and perform, and they were so very gracious to us beginners in the business. The theaters, Palace Theater, you would go in at 8:30 in the morning, and you'd rehearse. Now, the bill consisted of maybe 20 acts, and there was maybe a 25-piece band. Well, each performer would take one musician, and at the same time, on the same stage, we all rehearsed. You closed your ears to whatever else anybody else was doing. And at 11:30, the theater opened, and you started your first show. You had a show for you did your live show for about an hour, and then they would have a movie. So you never could be away from the theater more than an hour, okay? So you worked from 11:30 in the morning till maybe midnight.
When performers got off work late at night and wanted a place to relax and unwind, they'd head over to Val's to hear jazz great Art Tatum work his magic on the piano. Val's was a tiny club tucked away behind two storefronts at East 86th and Cedar.
But Art liked it back there. And when Art's in town, everybody in town would come and hear him. And word get around, and the people in the theater, if they're on, I don't care what show, it's a Hanna Theater, Hippodrome, Art's in town, let's go with Val's, okay. And you couldn't get in Val's. People would be lined up all over to hear him play.
Another popular gathering place was the Short Vincent, an alley off of East 9th Street downtown that was lined with restaurants and clubs.
I never worked that area because you had to mix. Mixing was sitting with customers and drinking. And my parents were so opposed to me performing, going into a club performing, so I kind of stayed away from stuff like that. But it was, Short Vincent was alive. Come 7 o'clock at night, it was alive until the clubs closed at 2:30 in the morning.
Short Vincent was perhaps best known as the home of the Roxy, one of the leading burlesque houses in the nation.
The Roxy produced many of the leading people in movies today and years ago, such as Bob Hope, the Burns and Allen, Three Stooges. All of them started with burlesque. And I feel burlesque was an asset to Cleveland because it drew the people.
Yes, live entertainment for every taste abounded here in Cleveland not so very long ago. And we didn't have to go to a nightclub to catch a live act. Many times we were treated to vaudeville shows, comics, or dancers when we went to one of the grand old movie houses, like the Palace, Keith's 105th, the Hippodrome, and many others.
I remember going down to the Palace and seeing Gene Krupa. in a live band, right, a vaudeville right on the stage. And but they had great big staircases that went up, and very ornate, beautiful. Great big huge chandeliers in the middle, just like the old palace, the old State Theater.
The downtown theaters were lavish temples of cinema. But when we were kids, the place to be on a Saturday afternoon was the neighborhood movie house.
The matinee on Saturday was a big attraction for young people. It may have only cost a dime at the time, but every week we'd come. And one of the things that brought us back was not only the feature movie, but there was a serial. And the serial would go on week after week after week, and invariably it had a way of ending with the hero or the heroine in a very critical situation. Either they're about to be pushed off a running train in the middle of, or run over by a train or whatever, and then so you want to come back the following week. And then during the intermission, after the main feature was over, there would be projections on the screen of various songs. And there'd be a bouncing ball that accompanied the lyrics of it. The audience would know exactly how to sing the song, whether it's Home on the Range or I've Been Working on the Railroad. So those of us who didn't know the exact spot could just follow the bouncing ball on the screen. So going to the movies on a Saturday was quite an event.
And of course, you had your dish night at that time, where they give away dishes and they gave away money.
My parents would go and they'd get like combs and brushes and dishes and everything. I remember the time my father went and won a live turkey. He came home and he took it into the basement to kill it, and the head, it was running around without the head, and blood. Oh, all right. Kids are screaming. We used to, in high school, we'd, if you had higher grades, they'd let you out to go to the neighborhoods and you'd collect their iron, tin cans,
yes,
all
aluminum.
Yeah, and I remember I said to my mother, oh, somebody put in a new fry pan, you know, one of those iron ones. I said, I was tempted to take it.
Oh, the war. Well, we had the rationing. We used to paint our legs. Remember, because we couldn't get stuck.
Get stuck.
Yes, right. This makeup would drip down your leg.
You couldn't cross your legs because it was tired.
People didn't have cameras the way they have now, and so you waited until the photographer came through the neighborhood, usually with a pony.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes.
He'd take pictures.
Yes.
Well, he came through our neighborhood, and I had the mumps. But Mother said, it's now or never, so I had my picture taken with mumps. But we did have a photograph, because that happened like once a year.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Right. Yeah.
I find it very pleasant to come out here to Tri-Center and dance with all these wonderful people. And of course, it's pretty tough when you have a 20-year-old mind locked up in an 80-year-old body. You know? But these people are very gracious people, and they're very good dancers. And it brings back many memories of our past. We pretty much all experienced the same thing, the same kind of dancing in the 40s and sometimes in the 30s.
We sure did a lot of dancing. You danced every dance. And never too tired to get up and go to work the next day.
We had Dance Land up on Euclid, which was great. We had the Trinon Ballroom, which was great. Well, the Trinon was done very pretty. It had elevated sections there for the seating and for the drinks you could provide and so forth. And you could look down on the dancers. It was very pretty. It was a large ballroom.
Euclid Beach was one of the most prevalent and prominent dance halls at that time. And I'm sure almost everyone here at Tri-Center remembers Euclid Beach dance floor, because it was one of the finest dance floors in the entire nation, believe that or not. The floor, when it was refinished, was absolutely flat, and it was well preserved. They polished it and they waxed it, and I can kid you not, if you didn't have good balance, you were going to fall on that floor. They even cautioned you about that. But it was a very, very beautiful dance floor. And when it was torn down, it just broke everybody's heart. Aragon was another wonderful, wonderful dance area where everybody could meet someone for their style of dancing. And you could always have a good time. And the dress code was enforced very strictly. You had to have a dress jacket, and you must behave yourself in a gentlemanly fashion, or they just take you out of there. That's all there was to it. There was no two ways down the street.
In fact, you couldn't go in the head ties as an extra at the Aragon if you didn't have a tie when you came in.
And would you believe we danced to Lawrence Welk when he was just an unknown? And also Pat Boone was there. They were both unknown. Of course, my two girlfriends, they would never miss Lawrence Welk. Of course, at that time, you know, the music was just super.
And we all got dressed up, and long dresses and high-heeled shoes, and well, we just had a ball.
I used to live 5 houses away from it, and I'd sit on the porch and in the summertime, and the ladies would come down the street wearing their formals, and I used to look forward to becoming old. And then in the summertime, they didn't have air conditioning back then, and my father made my brother and me each a pair of stilts, and there was an alley behind the Aragon, and we used to stand there and peer in, and the heat would just be overpowering, you know, all the cologne coming at you. And then I remember one time the custodian kicked me out because I snuck in with roller skates.
I remember going to the Aragon when I was single. They didn't serve alcoholic beverages, especially on Sunday. They didn't even serve beer. They would have snacks, they would have drinks, and they would have dancing. You would dance the evening. It would be like maybe 8 until 11. And then after that, people would go out and have coffee. If you had a date, then your date continued. But it was nice because you didn't have to have a partner. You could go with a group of girls, or the guys would. Matter of fact, that's how I met my husband. I was at a dance in 1948. The skirts were down to here, okay? And I was wearing a red crepe dress, and it rained. And of course the skirt went all the way up to here, and I was standing hoping that it would dry. And I'm standing behind other women, you know, so that nobody would ask me to dance, and my husband pointed me out and said, "Would you like to dance?"
We danced every dance, and usually we came there by streetcar, and I also had to go home by streetcar. And sometime we missed the last streetcar, and then we had to walk home for 2 miles. We weren't afraid to walk home those 2 miles years ago. It'd be like 1 o'clock in the morning, and thought nothing of walking those 2 miles. So we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't make a lot of money, but it was a wonderful time. I wouldn't have missed those times for anything.
My grandmother lived in Toledo, so I'd go up there and stay with her maybe during the summer. If I wanted to stay any longer, I would. Didn't make any difference, so I'd get on my bicycle and ride down to 9th Street and catch the boat, and it would leave at 8:30. And I'd go to Toledo, stop and put Cedar Point, 10 o'clock, about 12:30, and then to go to Putin Bay, get to about 2, leave about 4. Then go on in Toledo and dock at 8:30 that night. I get off my bicycle, ride to my grandmother's house and stay.
I had one trip. It was on one of the old DNC boats, and it was an overnight, well, 2 nights on the boat. When we left here at Cleveland, we got on it in the evening and left here at 11 o'clock. We got off at Detroit in the morning, and we had breakfast before we left the boat. We had lunch at the Dearborn Inn. We had dinner at the Book Cadillac Hotel. We went sightseeing at Greenfield Village and Belle Isle, and I don't know what else. And got back on the boat that night, came back the next morning, had breakfast the next morning. It was $11.75. The whole thing was unbelievable. I just love the boats, and I wish to goodness that somebody would bring one back.